This was the start of a 10-year journey towards the comet Churyumov-Gerasimenko. After two earlier failed attempts to launch due to weather, Ariane 5 finally lifted off for this unique profile mission. Two hours after liftoff, Rosetta left Earth behind, heading for the outer solar system. In the Jupiter control room in Kourou and at science institutes around Europe, they are ecstatic. ESA's Space Operations Center in Germany is controlling the spacecraft during its 7 billion kilometer journey. The probe will have to greatly increase its speed to catch the comet. Its journey will involve 4 gravity assist maneuvers, taking Rosetta around the Earth 3 times and Mars once. Each planet flyby, much like a slingshot, will propel it faster and be used to modify the trajectory. Rosetta will pass within 200 kilometers of Mars, making scientific observations. The Martian flyby is followed by another swing-by of Earth. Rosetta then will finally head towards the orbit of the comet after the third Earth flyby. During the trip, the probe will be passing twice through the asteroid belts, making detailed close-up studies of 1 or 2 of them. By mid-2011, controllers will trigger the ignition of Rosetta's main engine to place the probe on a rendezvous course towards the comet, which it will take 3 years to reach. Comets are considered to be the vestiges of the primordial gaseous soup that existed about 4.5 billion years ago. They harbour evidence of the chemical and physical conditions which led to the creation of the Sun and planets. Rosetta's objective is to reach these archives of the Earth's history, the story of our own creation. The Comet Chaser will close in on its target in January of 2014. The comet will then still be far from the Sun and dormant. For the first time in space exploration, Rosetta will, in August 2014, place itself in orbit around the comet nucleus, accompanying Churyumov-Gerasimenko on its own journey towards the Sun. Detailed mapping of the surface will be conducted and a landing site selected for the culminating and extremely ambitious phase of this mission. In November 2014, the 100-kilogram lander called Philae will separate from its mothership and descend to the comet's surface. It will touch down at walking speed and will need to anchor itself with 2 harpoons to avoid bouncing off. The lander is expected to operate several weeks, perhaps even months, sending the ground truth key elements, snatching and sniffing data, whilst the Rosetta orbiter continues its observations from above. In this quiet office complex north of Johannesburg, South Africa's first ever personal satellite tracking system has been devised in a quest for personal safety in a country rife with hijacking and recently kidnapping. The small but highly intelligent tracker dubbed Buddy on Call uses the already existing international GPS and GPRS positioning and is linked to subscribers' security company or designated call centers around the country. Brian Liebesman is the director and founder of the program. He's thrilled with the innovation and says he'll upgrade it with Bluetooth technology and include photographs of the users displayed on a personal desk administrator. But for the time being, the tracking unit is armed with 3 buttons. Pressing the first button sends out 5 fixed SMS messages to a list of 5 programmed telephone numbers. A second function dials any 3 programmed numbers and will automatically dial the next if the call is not answered within 20 seconds. The third, the panic button, sends a distress call to a call center, which immediately locates the user's exact whereabouts to within a 2-meter radius through computerized vector mapping. Any conversations taking place when the panic button has been pressed and the speed at which the tracker unit is moving can also be monitored at the call center. Medical details, address, car make and registration numbers of each individual subscriber can also be added onto the computer database and will show when the panic button is activated. Liebesman says the personal tracker unit would come in handy to hijack or kidnap victims in the country. This innovative technology is soon to be launched around the world. Within seconds of a rocket taking off from ESA's launch site in French Guiana, the spacecraft payload on board is already sending back data. A continent away in Germany, operations controllers start a complex schedule of tasks known as the launch and early orbit phase, or LEOP. The spacecraft now is only minutes before it will separate from the launcher, and it must be raid ready. This is a critical stage. The solar panels are fanned out to provide electric power. The motors are fired to guide the craft into its final orbit, as all the onboard systems are powered up and tested. The European Space Operations Centre, known as ESOC, has planned and launched more than 50 missions. ESOC is the hub of a network of ground stations from Australia to Spain to the north of Sweden that monitor and control ESA's spacecraft. One of the key tasks after launch is keeping the fleet safe from space junk. Since the launch of Sputnik in 1957, more than 4,000 rocket launchers have placed more than 5,500 satellites in orbit. Fewer than 1,000 are still working. Most of the rest are still up there, some of them in pieces, along with debris like the burned out upper stages of launch rockets. At speeds of 10 kilometers a second, even a tiny fragment could wreck a 3-ton satellite. ESOC uses a complex computer system to track all known pieces of space debris and to guide its own spacecraft clear of danger. Keeping space safe for satellites is a 24-hour-a-day task. Currently, ESOC is watching over the XMM Newton X-ray Space Telescope, the Integral Gamma Ray Observatory, the 4 Cluster Science satellites, the Mars Express Orbiter, the Smart 1 mission to the Moon, and the Rosetta mission to study and land on a comet. It also controls observatories monitoring conditions here on Earth. ESA's footprint in space is growing. The success of the Huygens probe to Titan set the record for the most distant remote landing ever made. And Europe starting a new age of exploration with ESOC at the helm. The primary function of the spacecraft we have orbiting our planet is to gather and relay information back to tracking stations on Earth. The craft may be working in conjunction with a space station or deploying satellites in the quest to further our knowledge. In the course of obtaining this knowledge, astronauts carry out many tasks. It might mean taking a spacewalk, or, would you believe it, playing with toys. Each of these toys works because of important scientific and mathematical principles that are often taken for granted on the ground. Watch what happens when the suction cup releases from the astronaut's hand. You can see the spring jumper take off. Watch it again. Look how fast it travels across the spaceship. In slow motion, you can see it tumbling off the lockers. The big question with this scene is, Will the frog swim as well in air as he does in water? If you watch closely, you'll see no, he does not. The astronaut tries several ways to get the frog to swim in a straight line, but because the air is much less dense than water, the frog will just flop aimlessly around. With this toy submarine, both the propeller and the submarine turn as it floats through the air. In water, of course, only the propeller would rotate. Now, if we hold on to the propeller, the submarine turns around it. But when we let both go, it takes off. This time the astronaut has attached small pieces of paper to the propeller to make it larger. What will happen when we let this go? You can see it really takes off. Now a pen is taped to the end of the propeller to see if that would change the way the submarine moved. As you can see, it is now far less directional in its movement and much harder to keep under control. This fish can swim really well in water, but here in space, he's really struggling and not getting anywhere. However, one thing that will help the fish swim better in air is increasing the size of the fin. It also appears that releasing the fish very gently has an impact on which direction the fish will swim. We finally got it right, and the fish is swimming forward. If we release a flapping bird into microgravity, you can see it just flies around in circles and doesn't seem to have any direction of travel. Look at it again in slow motion. It just goes around, not in a straight line as it does in Earth's gravity. It looks as if it's rotating around the wings. Now if we get it to soar without the wings flapping, it soars across the deck. This is a great way of showing how birds need gravity to fly. The International Space Station is the biggest man-made construction in space and one of the biggest research projects ever. It's the result of international cooperation between Europe, the United States, Russia, Japan, and Canada. Italian Roberto Vittori was the first European astronaut to fly to the International Space Station, and now he's the first to make a second mission. He will take off as flight engineer on board the Soyuz TMA-6 spacecraft. With his crew, they've been training at the Volcano Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Their task on the ISS is to exchange the station lifeboat as well as the current crew. As flight engineer, Vittori will take an active role in piloting and docking the spacecraft. The International Space Station is still under construction. New modules, solar panels and research laboratories have to be added. Once completed, the 450-ton International Space Station will have more than 1,200 cubic meters of pressurized space, an area as big as a football pitch. There will be enough room for 7 crew members and a vast array of scientific experiments. Europe's main contribution to the ISS is the Columbus Laboratory, now nearing completion. The Columbus will house up to 8 research facilities for material and life sciences. Europe's other major project is the Automated Transfer Vehicle. It's a supply ship and will carry up to 9 tons of cargo at a time, including fluids, food, clothes and equipment. It would have been impossible to build the ISS on the ground and then launch it into space in one go. There's no rocket big enough or powerful enough. This is why the space station is taken into space piece by piece and gradually built in orbit around 400 kilometers above the Earth's surface. The ISS is growing into the brightest object in the night sky after the moon. Smiling faces enjoying hard work in space. Everybody is well trained and in good health. We know from past missions that long-term exposure to weightlessness induces physiological changes that strongly affect an astronaut's health and performance. Because space is largely male-dominated, men have been the objects of most scientific studies on these phenomena. Little is known about how the female body reacts to the prolonged absence of gravity. But that is changing. 24 women, all carefully selected volunteers, will remain in bed with their heads slightly tilted down at an exact -6-degree angle from the horizontal for as long as 2 months. They are not allowed to sit up for even a second. Without actually being in space, this is the closest one can get to experiencing the effects on human beings of long-term space missions. The study will develop countermeasures that will help prevent the loss of bone mass, muscular atrophy, or changes in the cardiovascular system. This research is vital if the human machine is to match ESA plans for interplanetary travel and missions to Mars that could take up to 3 years. This experiment is a joint initiative of the space agencies from Europe, France, the United States of America, and Canada. Long-term bed rest studies have been conducted in the past with mainly male volunteers, but this new study is the most complex one of its kind ever designed for women only. Once 3 weeks of preliminary tests are completed, the first 12 volunteers are divided into 3 groups. One will act as the control group and will receive no extra stimulus during the 60-day bed confinement period. Another will be more active and carry out a rigorously designed body exercise program, while the last group will receive a nutritional supplement that will help them maintain the levels of muscular mass and strength. Not to break dramatically with their daily routines, like taking a shower or enjoying a meal, and to help them stay in touch with the outside world, volunteers will be all allowed to read, flick through the television, or surf the internet, as long as they do it horizontally. Apart from increasing our knowledge of how the female body reacts to extended conditions of simulated weightlessness, the results of this experiment could be of value to all of us. The study will cast light on the treatment of pathologies such as muscular atrophy, derived from a long period of bed confinement, or osteoporosis, which is a common health problem in the elderly, mostly affecting women. That studies like this one are useful is beyond any doubt. This speeded up footage shows a new robot being tested. This 8-legged walking machine is named Dante 2 and is on field trials. Dante 2 has been built to withstand a journey to the floor of a volcano and report back what it finds there. It has been constructed to take the harshest conditions on Earth, and its goal is to iron out technology to explore distant planets. The robot is being controlled from over 100 kilometers away remotely, and is investigating the inner depths of an active volcano at Mount Spur, Alaska. The precise location is called Spur's Caldera and is an open pit of steaming vents. It is surrounded by sheer rock walls. One of Dante's functions was to measure the levels of volcanic gases within the crater. The last time it erupted was 1992. This crater is definitely active enough. 11 scientists have been killed whilst working near active volcanoes in the recent past, which makes robots a good alternative. The constant risk of an explosion means that scientists need to continuously measure seismic activity and keep in constant radio contact with the team on the rim of the crater. The first Dante attempted to explore Mount Erebus in Antarctica. However, the mission was cut short when its fiber optic communications cable snapped. That mission taught some valuable lessons. Major design changes were made to improve its systems. However, they had to be done quickly to keep the project on schedule. Experts in the fields of laser technology, telecommunications, computer software, and mechanical engineering ensured that the project was kept on time. Dante's power was sourced from a generator, and when that was flowing and the communication links were in place, Dante began its mission into the crater. Control over the snowfields was aided by special rubber snowshoes. Dante took 3.5 days to travel the 700 feet down to the crater floor, which consisted of an area strewn with boulders. Scientists in Anchorage were relayed information from onboard sensors and video cameras. Dante's climb was impeded by the extremely treacherous terrain. However, all scientific and technological objectives were achieved, and the end result was an indication that the crater will most likely remain inactive from now on. This mission showed that dangerous terrain was able to be explored using unaided robotic technology. British space scientists are strongly urging the European Space Agency to organise another attempt to explore the planet Mars. They want the mission to carry out a detailed analysis of the Martian environment and the surface of the red planet. The €500 million rover mission will be based on technology already used in previous unmanned missions to Mars, such as that used by Beagle 2 to sniff out traces of life, past or present. With Britain having already been the leading force in Mars Express and Beagle 2 expeditions, it's hoped any future space exploration to Mars will see the UK taking a similar role. If accepted, the launch is planned for 2011, with the mission arriving 2 years later and hopefully bringing us closer to unlocking the secrets of the Red Planet.